and welcome to this video. This is going to be very different from what I have filmed before. It's going to be a sit-down video where I just talk about Cushing's disease and my experience with it. Cushing's disease is a condition where you have a tumor. It can be on your pituitary gland or on your adrenal glands, and pretty much that tumor is secreting a ton of the hormone called cortisol. And whether that is through producing another hormone and the other gland gets told to produce cortisol, you need cortisol to survive. But when you have way too much cortisol going through your body, it can cause a lot of problems. And yeah, that's what I was struggling with for a while. It was a few years before I actually had the surgery to get it removed. So mine was on the pituitary gland, which is connected to your brain. And man, it caused so many problems. I'm just gonna stop right now and just give a little warning or disclaimer. I am going to have pictures of like blood and some other things that are just might be a little bit harder to see. And I will put a warning before I show them, but just so you know, this video is going to involve that because, I mean, that's part of my journey. That's some of the things that has happened to me, and, you know, they're not pretty. So before I got diagnosed, it would have been about 2022 when I started noticing some symptoms of some type of hormonal imbalance, and that was just hair falling out. I had a very irregular period. My whole cycle was just completely different than everyone else's. I all of a sudden just started experiencing so much anxiety, and I was always stressed out. So just having a couple symptoms, I obviously went to a doctor, and after a while, they ended up diagnosing me with PCOS. But around that same time, I started having insane bruises on my legs. I wouldn't even know where these bruises were coming from, and they were actually so bad. I'll put some pictures up of what some of my bruises looked like. In between then and my surgery, they just kept getting worse. A little while later, I actually fractured my radius head just from a slight fall. And so I went to the doctor, got it all figured out. And less than a year later, I actually ended up snapping my ankle. And after that happened, when I went for a checkup, I had so much bruising around my ankle that they actually gave me another x-ray to figure out if I had broken more bones. The orthopedic surgeon had told me that she had never seen bruising quite like that from a broken bone. At one point, I had actually gotten kicked in the shin, and it became a huge bruise, and it was so swollen. And after about a week and a half, it actually turned into a hematoma. That was when my parents realized that something was extremely wrong with me and that we needed to figure it out fast. I ended up getting a Dutch test, which is pretty much a hormonal panel. You do it at home and you send it off to the lab. And when it came back, my levels of cortisol were frightening. My naturopath told me to get an MRI to check if I had a tumor on my pituitary gland because she suspected that I had Cushing's disease. It took about 8 months for me to get an MRI, but finally I got one. When the results from the MRI came back, lo and behold, there was a tumor on my pituitary gland. I had a call with the neurosurgeon, and pretty much he told me that it was going to be a while until I got my surgery. There were a lot of people on this waiting list, and that, you know, it could be several months to a year. And hearing that when you are already struggling with your health is quite hard to hear. But I knew it was in the Lord's hands, and I knew that whatever timing it was that I would get my surgery was going to be perfect. In the same week I had my call with my neurosurgeon, I was in PE class at school. I ended up colliding with one of my friends, and when we both were falling towards the ground, her foot came up and hit the inside of my leg, and it ended up taking off a bunch of skin, and it was quite a big wound. And I went to the hospital, and they weren't actually able to stitch up the wound because my skin had gotten so thin from Cushing's disease. Having cortisol going through your body at that amount actually makes it so other things aren't able to be produced as much. That includes collagen, which is pretty much what keeps your skin elastic and thick. I was told that my skin was at the same thickness as a 90-year-old woman. After coming back from the hospital, I was very discouraged in my own body, and, you know, it took a really big toll on my mental health, but I was able to get through it, and I even got to speak in a Bible class and tell them how I was still able to have joy in the hardest situation of my life. Then a week and a half later, I opened my car door into my leg through jeans, and it left a huge, deep wound in my leg. To this day, my scar still has a divot in my leg because of how much skin it took out. And at this point in my health journey, I was told to go off of completely every vitamin, every supplement that I was taking, so that when I was getting tests done, they knew it was completely my body and there was nothing interfering with it. And I have to say that's when I noticed the biggest drop of quality of life for me. I had absolutely no energy anymore. My hair was falling out so much. I was constantly in pain, all of my body. My muscles were so tense, especially like my neck into shoulders. And I wasn't allowed to play sports anymore. I wasn't allowed to do any of the activities that I liked. Another thing I want to say is that Cushing's disease, having so much cortisol in your body, it also makes you hold on to water retention. And so all of my limbs were actually swollen, and including my face. My face was very swollen. You're going to see some videos and stuff, and I just want you to look at my face and then look at me now. I am less than a year post-op, and the amount of swelling that has gone down is actually insane. It was about midsummer after my graduation, and I got told that in order to go into surgery, I had to have this procedure done. Now, this procedure is called an IPSS. So how an IPSS actually works is a small catheter is actually inserted into your groin, into the femoral vein. It's under X-ray guidance, and then they thread the catheter up it, all the way up your body, and then it goes into your sinuses. This time, I remember it all. I was very sleepy, but I did stay awake during the whole thing, and I could feel it once it hit about right here. And as soon as it went into my head, I could feel it in my sinuses, and it was like a throbbing pain. It was like a bad headache. And I could hear like this screeching in my ear. It is the weirdest thing I have ever been through. Like, I cannot compare anything to it, and I can barely even describe it to someone. After the procedure was done, they wheeled me into kind of a recovery room, and I was told I wasn't allowed to sit up for, I think it was about an hour, maybe 2 hours until after, just to make sure that I didn't kind of bleed out. I wasn't really allowed to do any exercise or anything for about a week after. I actually did vlog my trip over to Vancouver for this procedure. So if you want to watch it, it's going to be in the link in the description below. After getting this IPSS done, honestly, it was just such a waiting season. I didn't really have anything to look forward to because there was no dates set for anything. And it also was just like, I couldn't do anything that I liked doing before. After I did some tests to measure my cortisol, my endocrinologist called me and pretty much told me that my levels had doubled since January of that year. She wanted me to go on this medication called ketoconazole. And so I ended up going on that for a while. I had to take it at 9 in the morning and 9 at night. While I was on ketoconazole, since it's a very intense medication, I had to go for blood tests every single week to test my liver enzymes and something else, I forget what it was. And after that, I had to go to get an ECG. After a while, I started experiencing a bunch of nosebleeds, and my gums were bleeding sometimes. And so I called her. She told me to just completely stop taking the medication and that we would just have to wait until I had my surgery. Finally, I got booked for my surgery for November 1st, and I got booked less than 2 weeks out. Yeah, we headed for Vancouver a little while after. Now, this surgery has one good thing about it, and that is that it actually goes through your nose into your sinuses, and they drill into your skull through there. So you won't have to shave your head, you won't have to lose your hair for this. But you are going to have a stuffed and bleeding nose for a while after. After my surgery, I was in the hospital for, I believe, 3.5 days, and I was in the urgent care the entire time. For the first 12 hours after the surgery, I was getting a blood test every single hour. And so I did not sleep that night, and it was pretty terrible. Not gonna lie, it was horrible. And I just found every night I was at the hospital was horrible. I don't know if it was because of Cushing's or just because of being in a hospital at night is just not where I want to be. But during the day, I felt much better. They were giving me such a high dose of a cortisol steroid because completely dropping it right away would put your body into shock. So those 12 hours after your surgery, there's no cortisol in the body. So my body just went into absolute shock. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like a zombie version of myself. And even when my parents came to see me, they told me that I just looked horrible. By the next day, I very much felt more like myself. I wasn't feeling great, but I was able to walk with assistance, and I could just feel myself becoming a bit more, normal, like myself. For the first 4 weeks after my surgery, I barely left the house. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to socialize, just because I didn't feel well. I felt almost like I was sick. So many muscle spasms in my legs, and it was kind of a terrible time. After I was starting to get kind of used to this new thing my body was doing to me, I was able to see friends. I was able to hang out with people. I don't know, that made my mental health a bit better for sure. I did have stents in my nose for 12 weeks, and that was horrible. I could barely sleep at night because I would wake up because I was breathing out of my mouth. I don't know, I'm a nose breather 100% of the time. And so not being able to breathe out of my nose was horrible. Now, after my surgery, I went for another endocrinologist appointment, and she weighed me and she was like, "Oh, you haven't lost any weight since after surgery." And this was about 12 weeks after my surgery. So I was like, okay, whatever, go home. About a month later, I weighed myself and I had lost 30 pounds. And within that month, my face completely slimmed out. And that's when I started noticing all of the physical changes, of my appearance. And so honestly, going from feeling insecure about the way I looked to finally noticing a difference and being like, this is actually me, this is who I recognize, was really, really cool. Even to this day, I am still not fully recovered. I'm still dealing with things that kind of were from Cushing's disease. And one of them being where my bones kind of deteriorated a bit. They degraded when I was under so much stress. Now I'm dealing with cysts on my bones that have kind of degraded at the joints. That is something that Cushing's can do to you. So if you have Cushing's disease, I do suggest you get that looked into if you have joint problems, because I had no idea that was a thing. And honestly, I didn't expect it to be me. But honestly, I didn't expect any of this to be me. I was a healthy 17-year-old, and tumors don't come because you're healthy or unhealthy. They just happen. So yeah, this is kind of my story, my experience with Cushing's disease, and I think I'm going to play some videos that I had vlogged during my health journey. Yeah, I wanted to share these videos because honestly, I didn't think I would. I didn't think I would ever post these videos. I didn't think I would ever share my story because I didn't think it was worth sharing. But now that I'm on the other side of this, I realized that if I could have watched someone else tell me about this, and even someone my own age, I would have felt a lot better about it. I would have felt like I wasn't alone because, I've never met someone who's gone through something like I have. I've met people who have gone through way worse or not as bad, but there's nothing the same as this. And so, yeah, that's what I love about the internet. You can always find things on here. There we go. Here's some of my health journey. Okay, so yesterday was Bible chapel class, and we are kind of going over the book of James. And I've read through the book of James. I don't even really remember. But I know that at the very beginning of it, I think it's James chapter 1, verse 2, it talks about consider it pure joy to go through trials and stuff. And it talks a bit about that, and that just, I don't know. In Bible class yesterday, I didn't really talk a whole lot because I didn't really know what to say.
So I was just kind of sitting there just soaking it all in, and I was just kind of thinking about like what I'm going through. It's kind of weird and it's kind of crazy to me that it's me that's going through it, because I felt like, and I still feel like I'm pretty healthy. I try to eat pretty clean. I like exercising. I don't live an unhealthy lifestyle. So for me to be the one to have to go through like a bunch of health problems is kind of weird, and it just doesn't seem right, because I don't seem like the type of person to have to go through that. But when I look at it, and like in James, it's talking about like consider it joy because of what can come out of it, and like enduring through it, like that there is joy that can come out of it. And so I know that like even though this is super sucky and everything that I'm going through, you know, like it sucks. It really, really sucks. I know that there is joy that is going to come out of it. And I, like, out of anyone who this could happen to, I feel like maybe I'm a good person for it, because now getting through this, and once I get through it all, I can talk about it to people, and I can be like someone that someone else will need, because I can understand it a bit more. And so I can be that person for other people. And so for me, having to go through this, I want to be able to look back on it and be like, wow, I maybe some of the things I handled really well and some of the things I didn't handle so well. But I want to look back on it and not feel like I was bitter about anything, and feel like that, you know, I let those hard things really take me down. So like, even though sometimes it does really take me down, I don't want to regret like the way I handled things. I know that there is good that will come out of it, and I think that anticipating that God can use these hard times for good, and just getting through it that way is really good, and I'm really trying to do that. We're here. I haven't seen it yet, so that's funny. But we got plenty of footage, so that will be on here. But we're just waiting for them to come deal with it more. They took off the bandage. What time is it?
4:09.
It's 4:09, and we got here at 10:30-ish, 10:15. So it's been a while. It's been a long day, but it is okay. I got back from the hospital. They wrapped it up. She froze my leg. So first she put this stuff on it, like this liquid stuff, and it stung a bit. Left it on for like 20 minutes, and then she came back to put in like the needles. I forget what it's called, but whatever. It's beside the point. To put in the needles to freeze it. And oh my gosh, that was one of the worst pains I've ever been in. Like, it was so bad. She stuck the needle in, and like the needle hurt, and it like went through my skin like by quite a lot. It was like that much. I didn't watch it, but she stuck it in, and then when she starts like putting the fluid into my leg, it burns so much. It was, and then I like would start shaking like uncontrollably. It was so bad, and so I started crying, and then my dad would hold my hand while she did it, because she had to do it like 5 times. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. It hurt. It hurt so much. But it's over now. Turns out that she didn't actually have to stitch anything up, so I don't think I actually needed that done. And so that's just awesome. But I'm bandaged up. She couldn't really put stitches in because my skin's so delicate, And it's so thin, so she would risk just tearing me more. So she didn't do that. Holy crap, the steak kind of sucked. We were seriously there for like over 7 hours. Life is just really lifing right now. This is for my vlog. My eyes.
Look at your shoe.
Yeah, I'm still shaking though. Leg wound 3.0. Trixie decided not to wait for her dinner, and this is what it resulted in, right?
Why would you do that to me?
I've literally been in the hot tub 3 times since being allowed to go in the hot tub because of my other leg wounds, and now I might not be able to go in the hot tub for like another however long it takes to heal. Last time it took 5 months, so we don't really know.
Okay, it is 9:25. Visiting Mercedes. Got Reed here, Simone and Rosie. Simone and Rosie, Erica, and me. Yep, Mercedes just got her new sweater that I got her. We got a chicken here. I'm laying in her bed. And yeah, she's sitting right there. She got a card from her Sunday school class from Juliana. All the kids signed it. So sweet. Yeah. How are you feeling, Mercedes?
Kind of like poop.
Yeah. That's it. Bye.